I'm Ellie from Ellie's Exotics, and I have been a reptile keeper for the last 8 years. I've had the same reptile room this entire time, so as you can imagine, I have outgrown it. I got into reptile keeping because of pet tubers and their amazing reptile rooms. And now, I think it's finally time that I set up my own dream reptile room. In the last episode, we built some Viperia Vivariums and finally finished all of the custom backgrounds. We also had the electrics installed, and I explained to you the reality of a project like this.
I am never making a custom background again.
In today's episode, we'll get all the backgrounds installed and the enclosures moved into place. We'll set up their heating and lighting and even start decorating. My dream reptile room isn't going to build itself, so let's get started. One of the most important features of any reptile enclosure is their heating and lighting, so let's install those first. Here, my boyfriend is drilling in the heating element for my Dumeral's boa. Since she will be a large snake eventually, she's got a gold infrared unit. While this looks like a red lamp, it's actually not. It's just the filament warming up. I also like to provide all of my animals with UVB, and my Dumeral's boa really does love basking underneath this, so we attached some fixtures to the Viperia braces. She's got a T5 high output 6% forest dweller, and she has a jungle dawn for visible light. We then installed the background and popped the lid onto the enclosure and fixed it into place. After giving the Viv a good clean, we could start moving the first Viv into place. Moving on to the next setup now, we're setting up the heating and lighting for my Woma python. He won't get as big as Chai, so he will be fine with a standard eco halogen bulb. He also loves basking under his UVB, so he too has a 6% forest dweller and then a jungle dawn for visible light. We installed his background too. We've been drilling screws into the side so they don't move at all. We also fixed the lid onto the top and then moved Bicky's enclosure on top of Chai's. The third enclosure installation is a little bit different because it has a mesh top. 2 of the Vivs are also going to have a misting system, so we installed that through the side. We then moved the third and final Viperia enclosure onto the top of the stack. Their heating and lighting rested on top of the mesh, and they all have a UVB unit, a jungle dawn for plant growth, and an eco halogen. As always, a huge thanks to Viperia for providing me with these enclosures. This reptile room wouldn't be possible without them. These high quality PVC enclosures maintain heat and humidity perfectly, and the lightweight material makes for easy stacking. If you are also in the middle of building your dream reptile room and you're looking for new enclosures, then I highly recommend checking out Viperia. You can get your own enclosures via the link in the description or the pinned comments. Now let's get back to the video, and thanks again to Viperia. All heating elements should be connected to a thermostat to prevent overheating. Here's how I set mine up to make my life as easy as possible. I put every heating and lighting element onto a smart timer so I can control them through my phone. I also attach Velcro onto the thermostat itself and onto the enclosure so I can easily access each thermostat. Sometimes temperatures need to be adjusted based on the seasons, so having them in a prime spot like this is very handy. We also drilled a hole in the side of each Viv for the thermostat probe to come through. Now, the cable management isn't perfect by any means, but when you have a lot of reptiles, this is about as good as it gets. The misting system was now also all set up. The reservoir is on the bottom, and then it feeds up through a tube and into my chameleon geckos and my Pac-Man frogs enclosures. That means all the technical and electrical side of things is complete, and we can start setting up enclosures. So let's do a very quick debrief of each enclosure and how I set them up. If you want a more in-depth guide and setup of each enclosure, then every other week you'll be seeing one of these builds. So far, the chameleon gecko video is out, which is what you're watching now, and the Pac-Man frog video. But make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the future in-depth builds. That is the chameleon gecko enclosure all set up, and I am happy to announce that we do have a new addition joining the reptile room. This is Kiwi, Apple's new boyfriend. They were both added to the setup a couple of weeks ago, and I have actually seen them lock. So stay tuned for the very exciting videos about teeny tiny baby apples and kiwis. The next enclosure is for my Pac-Man frog called Big Mac, and just like the chameleon gecko enclosure, it's fully bioactive, all self-sustaining, and it's tailored to his needs. While I do say he, I'm pretty certain that Big Mac is a girl just because of how big he is. He's giant. This enclosure is 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot, and he honestly kind of makes it look tiny. My Kenyan sand boa called Marmite also has one of these 2x2 vivs, and that's because he's a pretty tiny guy and he is quite picky with eating, so I didn't want to go too big for him. Next week's video will be all about this Pokemon setup for Marmite and how you can do a bioactive setup for a burrowing species, because it can be a little tricky, especially when you have to dig them up for health checks. But that is all of the 2x2 setup. Let's move on to the huge 6-foot vivs. This is the main focal point of the new reptile room, and it is Bicky, my Woma python's enclosure. This is a very fast growing Australian species, so I was really happy to finally get him into his adult setup. He was less than a foot long when I first got him, and now Bicky is over 4 foot long and he's smashing food. If you've been watching for a while, then you know that this is probably one of my favorite snake species ever. I love them. And Bicky seems very happy with his new enclosure. As mentioned earlier, the other 6-foot viv is for my Doomrul's boa called Chai. While they still are a pretty big snake, they don't get nearly as big as your BIs or your BCs. So depending on her genetics, this could be her permanent enclosure. She's only about 4 foot at the minute. She's quite shy, so I added lots and lots of leaf litter for her to burrow in, lots of fake plants, and cork tunnels to hide away. I highly recommend Doomrul's boas to people, but remember, if you're from the UK, you do need paperwork for them as they are CITES listed. Now that all the Viperia vivs are set up, all the animals are in, that means one side of the reptile room is completely finished. But if you remember my plans from the first episode, then you'll know that I am also going to stack enclosures on the other side. But I can't lift the enclosures if they're full of substrate, so let's start dismantling the old reptile room. I took all the substrate out of the enclosures and hoovered any little bits out too. I also completely disinfected them for a true fresh start. Some enclosures I'm keeping, and others like these Exoterras I will be selling. But once they were empty, I could begin to move the enclosures that I'm keeping. I'm keeping this 4x2x3-ish enclosure for a new addition. I'm also keeping Kiki the corn snake's enclosure, which is a 4x2x2 wooden viv. Before stacking the next enclosure, we took out her old, awful Amazon plant light and popped in a jungle dawn instead. And then we could move the final viv onto the top of the stack, which is 4 foot long, 2 foot deep, and 1.5 foot tall. And this is for Toast, my baby Mexican black king snake. And that is all of the enclosures in place. I was buzzing at this point. The plan that I made and my vision had really come to life. But we still had 2 more enclosures to set up, so I did exactly that. Kiki's enclosure hasn't really changed, and you guys have seen me set up corn snake vivs many times, so you can check out those videos if you're interested. But here is the lovely lady Kiki. I gave her a bit of a cuddle before popping her into her new old viv. Her new spot, I guess. But here's how her enclosure turned out. I also have a full video about how I set up my bioactive king snake enclosure. That setup was doing really well, but when I tore it all down, some of the plants didn't survive, so for now I've decided to just pop plastic plants in. Here is the man himself, Toast, my Mexican black king snake. He actually is by far the friendliest snake I have in the reptile room. He is super chill. But I popped him into his new setup, and here is how that's looking. You may have noticed one more viv on the bottom that I didn't include the setup of, and that is because I'm going to do a full video about that and the new addition soon. Can you guess what I'm getting next? Now let's go back to real-time me.
So that means my dream reptile room is done. It's completely finished, or so I thought, I guess. Whilst working on this project, although it was hard, and you saw it was very hard, I found a love for it. And I really enjoyed it. And I have decided that I'm gonna be doing it all again. This side of the reptile room is done, but I am going to be converting the other side into my dream reptile room too. As you may or may not know, I have more reptiles than this. I've got more geckos, and then I do also have a couple of arachnids. So what I'm going to be doing is transforming the old reptile room into my dream gecko room. I now have a lot more space for projects like breeding. As you know, I got Apple a boyfriend, and more space to work with geckos that I have always wanted to work with. So consider this part 1 of building my dream reptile room all done. And over the next year, I'm going to be working on the second dream reptile room, and I'm not going to give myself such a big time constraint this time too. That stressed me out. So make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this series, and so you don't miss the more in-depth videos on each of these builds, and of course the reptile room tour, because I will be doing that in the coming weeks, and we'll go in depth and have a look at each of my animals. I'll give you an update on how they're liking their new enclosures, and hopefully by then we should have the new addition. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I really hope you did enjoy this series, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.